A deciding moment in the 1988 presidential election came when Willie Horton, a convicted first-degree murderer, was allowed out of prison as part of a rehabilitation program which presidential candidate Michael Dukakis had championed. Once temporarily released, he was swiftly apprehended for committing assault and rape in the state of Maryland. This caused outrage among the general public and was endlessly weaponized against the Democrats by Bush's campaign. The scandal may well have been the reason why Dukakis lost the 1988 presidential election, forever changing the course of history. On the other hand, after the 1995 Oklahoma City bombings, there was no such backlash. President Bill Clinton's approval ratings not only remained stable, but shot up from 46% before the bombing to 56% afterwards. The general outrage over the bombings gave the nation a moment of unifying clarity, proving that terrorist attacks could prove beneficial to an incumbent leader rather than politically disastrous. In response to the outrage around Willie Horton, Dukakis' Democratic successors, such as future Presidents Bill Clinton and Joe Biden, supported hardline Republican policies around crime in order to prevent another Willie Horton incident that could tank their electoral chances. Contrariwise, there was no such incentive to radically alter U.S. government policy after the Oklahoma City bombings. Obviously, no politician wanted to be seen as light on terrorism, but it had also been established that attacks by fringe extremists did not necessarily pose a threat to the electoral success of incumbents in the same way that a failure to combat violent crime did. When a problem threatens their political power, politicians act fast, like the Democrats rushing to look tough on crime after the Willie Horton scandal. But when failures don't really hurt them politically, like instances of terrorism, there's much less urgency to act. I think we all have one or two friends who listen to too much Joe Rogan, and as a consequence, believe outlandish conspiracy theories. These theories manage to gain mainstream levels of traction both within the United States and abroad. A Zogby International poll from 2004 suggested that as many as 41% of New Yorkers believed that the United States government knew about the 9/11 attacks in advance, but did not act. I would argue that a fundamental reason why these theories seem so believable is that there are obvious motives for the people in power. When 9/11 happened, George Bush's approval ratings reached levels unprecedented in American history. While I don't think theories around these issues are even remotely true, I also don't think that these obvious motives are just a coincidence. When leaders think that a potential event will hurt their political power, they are more likely to act. Let's just look at the Willie Horton example. When the Democrats understood that not being tough on crime could hurt their electoral chances, top members of the party made significant alterations to their policy agenda to try and prepare for this possibility. On the other hand, the Oklahoma City bombings demonstrated the opposite. Failing to prevent a terror attack would not be punished, and could even be politically rewarding. The downstream effects of the Oklahoma City bombings can be seen in the September 11th attacks. The 9/11 Commission report found that one of the main reasons the FBI failed to prevent the attacks was systemic underfunding of its counterterrorism division. Top bureau officials blamed this lack of funding on Congress, arguing that the investment needed to successfully prevent attacks was not being provided. Louis Freeh, the director of the FBI in the decade preceding 9/11, made an especially bold effort to bolster their counterterrorism efforts, especially after the aforementioned Oklahoma City bombings and the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. Despite Freeh's efforts, the 9/11 Commission report still found that the FBI's counterterrorism abilities were operating far below maximum capacity by the time of 9/11. Perhaps if the Oklahoma City bombings had demonstrated that domestic terrorism could be politically disastrous for incumbent leaders, there would have been far more willpower in Congress to fund the Bureau's counterterrorism efforts. In my opinion, this is why tragedies which end up helping incumbents are more likely to slip through. Horrific tragedies which benefit those in power are more likely to happen because if they hurt those in power, there would have been more of an active effort made to prevent them in earlier years. This doesn't mean that any one leader is responsible or took part in a conspiracy, but rather that over decades, thousands of small, self-serving decisions are made which don't prioritize preventing such catastrophes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like my style, you might want to check out this video about the former president of Burkina Faso, or this one about whether or not Russians are always going to be ruled by authoritarian leaders. See ya!